Deep breath. You're right.
The meeting of Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District is called to order at 5:01 PM. And the machine is open for roll call.
You don't have anything?
I mean, I have just,
System is off, it says.
Okay. You're here, though? Okay.
I'm here.
Should we take 5 for?
I don't know what's going on. Let Barb see what's
All right, let the record reflect that Commissioners Bartholomew, Arborough, Blink, Roussel, Newberry, LaFrance, and Cognovich are present today, and members Bo Black and Dr. Stuart Gui are absent today. All right, please rise for the prayer and pledge of allegiance.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessing, especially for the parish natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that the government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality for all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right.
After me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Newberry, do we need to take a few minutes for technical issues? I know your machine is.
Yeah.
We'll do 3-minute recess or so.
Thank you.
Got it. Sure. That's okay.
Call a hard reset, huh? I've done that before.
While we're taking this time for IT issues, are there any deferrals or withdrawals? All right. Hearing none.
We can switch you over to one of the other chairs.
That's fine with me if it's okay with her.
We have to edit
Yeah.
our seating chart. It's going to take us a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
yes, deferral on 3A and 6E. Until Shonbrell Riley gets here. It might be just delayed, or it could be deferred if they don't get here in time. They were caught in the ferry and got bumped. And I am asking that,
I'll defer item 2A. I'm sorry, withdrawal.
3A, yeah. And it's the,
Okay.
I'm asking that item number 6E be deferred until Mr. Matthews can be here.
Where is it?
Okay.
Now this is all screwed up.
We could start on your phone. Would you go through the details? Okay.
Sorry. Absolutely.
Ready?
All right. All right. Back from recess at 5:05 PM. All right, to recap withdrawals and deferrals. Item 2, letter A, will be withdrawn until Shambrell Riley arrives. Item 3A will be deferred. Item 6A, deferred.
Say one.
No,
I'm sorry.
6A.
What's that?
6A is a go.
Okay, all right. Apologies. And
E is the one that I asked to be deferred until Mr. Matthews can be here.
all right. You'd like to defer 6B? All right. And 6B? Sure. And I'll just a reminder, please cue in when you'll have a deferral. All right, moving along the agenda.
Status report by the Executive Board Director.
We still having technical issues?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 14 February through 26 February of 2020. During this time period, an announcement was made by our client, Venture Global Plaquemines LNG. They have entered into a 20 years sale and purchase agreement with the French electric utility firm. This is very exciting news and another indication of the viable promise of the Venture Global LNG project in our community. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report, subject to your questions or comments.
Certainly. Sandy, can you speak to any sort of progress on the rail relocation?
Sure. This past Friday, I just got back the renewed scope of work that was changed as a result of that meeting. We have identified the folks that we're going to ask to be on the panel that I'm going to head up. And I have commitments from 2 entities as far as paying for a portion of what the scope of work and putting the packet together from HDR. I'm still waiting for the third entity to see if they're going to pay or not.
Certainly. We'd love to see the scope of work and if possible, a list of those folks that are going to be on that committee.
Absolutely, and I am told that the scope of work, because you and Mr. Roussel were at that meeting, does allow that wiggle room that we can stick with the original plan and not have to redo all that was done in the past.
Certainly. I'm sure those folks in Gretna will be happy to get that railroad out of their backyard.
Absolutely.
Any questions from the panel? From the audience? Oh, Kognovich?
Yes,
Mic on.
Oh,
did the board hire another consultant?
It's not working.
Did the port hire another consultant?
Yeah.
Since when?
Couple weeks ago. Somebody asked me and I told them I'd find out.
Yes, sir, but the answer is no, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, along those lines, in our meeting that we had with Ms., can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes.
In the meeting that we had with Ms. Chambrell the other day, we had asked for an updated listing of contracts. Will she be bringing that with her today, or do you have that with you now?
I do not have it with me. She should be bringing it. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, and
And if she does not make it, I'll make sure you get it.
thank you. The other question, HDR, that's the same firm that did the original
Yes, sir.
EIS?
Yes, sir. The fellow that was at that meeting, Kevin Keller, he's going to redo the scope of work.
Okay, and as Mr. Blink said, we'd like to see that scope because coming out of that meeting, there was a lot of comments made that have me concerned about the direction.
About what, sir?
About the direction that the rail is going in?
Okay. The direction, the project, you mean, or the
Yes.
specific, the line?
No, I mean, the conversation revolved around some people thinking that, we've already looked at all of this and now we're looking at it again. And, Another group saying, you know, well, we need to look at this and what's going to be changed, and we don't want to get too far out the footprint because we have to do a whole new EIS. So the point I'm asking is some clarification by reading the scope. I might be able to get it from there without having to bog down the meeting.
Can do.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders, can you talk a little bit about supplemental pay? I heard there may be a snag in getting that extra money out to those folks. Is that coming along okay?
Yes, sir. I'm going to defer to Donald, who was at the meeting at the state. Donald, here.
I'll probably speak loud enough so you all can hear me. The glitch, I guess you'd call it is that the supplemental pay folks, the board, who are very hard to reach, not loud enough? Okay, y'all can hear me good?
Now we can.
Very good. In any case, I've been trying to meet with them for over 3 or 4 months and could not get a meeting. We had another meeting with the state fire marshal. We finally got our item on their agenda for their board on March 12th in Baton Rouge. So the bottom line is it gets down to what type of training the maritime folks do and what type of training the land side firefighters do. The law is the law as it was written. They don't like the way it was written, but it's law. So the bottom line is, as per the state fire marshal and others, that they have to abide by the law. So we're waiting for a meeting on March 12th to work out the details and continue moving forward. I'm in the process now of getting applications turned in that I was told to do to go and get the applications turned in so that if they don't accept them, then we can go from there. But I have contacted numerous folks that's going to be representing us there at the meeting that were involved in the law, in the bill, and we'll see what happens on March 12th, what the outcome of that meeting is.
Thank you, that's helpful. Appreciate it. All right, any other questions from the board, from the audience? All right, hearing none, moving down the agenda.
4, bids and advertisements. There are none. Introductions of ordinances and resolutions.
All right, please key in if you have any introductions. We're not doing that.
Come on up.
Hearing? All right, hearing none, moving down the agenda? Oh, wait. These are bids and advertisements. Would y'all like to handle an agenda item from number 6 while Ms. Riley gets comfortable and settled? Sure. Moving down the agenda.
6.1, an ordinance approving an easement servitude agreement between Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District and Plaquemines Parish Government, and authorizing and directing Maynard Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to execute the agreement whereby land owned by the port will be subject to the servitudes more fully described in attached Exhibit A for the consideration of $58,830.00, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. LaFance, would you like to offer with some changes? Right, I'm sorry, I'd like to offer with some changes here. All right. So for this ordinance, I'm moving on to have the following amendments made on line 7 and 8, $58,830.00. Please insert in its place $2,100.00. And on line,
180.
I'm sorry, $21.80.00. On line 13, please delete a copy of which is attached here too. On line 22, please delete 28,830, and please insert in its place 2180. On line 33 and 34, please delete $58,830, and insert in its place $2,180.
With those changes you offer?
With these changes, I offer. And I'd like to ask for a second. All right, seconded by Commissioner Kogovich. All right, machine's open.
Questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, any questions from the panel?
Yeah.
Councilmember Kogovich?
Is this the same property we did taxes on to buy?
No, this is the property, this all goes towards building the back levee. And before they can start on the back levee, they got to get the drainage right. So it allows the land to widen the drainage ditch, which will facilitate the flow of water to the pump station.
The port bought it with the millage that they passed against the people? That's how the port became owner of the property?
I'm not. I didn't understand the question, but my attorney here says that is correct.
So can't we donate it back so the people don't have to buy it again?
This is the Corps purchasing it from the port.
Mr. Kognovich, I don't know if the port can or not. I mean, I understand your point. It's $2,180. If we wanted to have the council decide that that needs to be donated somewhere or whatever, I'm sure that would be fine, but I do know that the Corps has been real anxious to have us get this done. It was deferred last time, and we've gotten word from Mr. Wagner on more than one occasion. And I know Mr. Cooley is here as well. They want it to get done. If you want us to defer so that we can find some way to,
If 2180 is a sticking point, then we'll donate it to whomever.
I'm just saying the people of parish bought it for the port to start with, so
Then let's give it back to the people of the parish.
can we do that? Just make an amendment to donation instead of.
We could do this for $1.
We can't hear you, LV.
You want to turn it on? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
L.V. Cooley, Plaquemines Parish Government, Special Assistant Parish Attorney. As most of you know, I've been working on acquiring rights-of-way easements and servitudes for the back levee project. This particular project is 06A1. The last piece that needs to be acquired is this particular piece, a servitude for the drainage, to replace the drainage in that area. We've already, we've, in the process of making the necessary purchase for all the acquisitions and have done all the appropriations. The only sliver of land left is this particular piece, and it's needed by Plaquemines Parish Government to fulfill its land acquisition activities to submit the right of entry for 06A1. So that's what this is about. There is no reimbursement on these amounts from the Corps. This is Plaquemines Parish Government paying the port if it accepts the grant of the servitude for this particular project, and it is required for the project. It's the last piece that needs to be acquired so we can grant the right of entry so they can go proceed forward with this particular construction activity.
But is there anything saying they can't donate it to us to do this project?
LV, I think
Danny
Danny
had.
might have something that could solve that.
Generally, because the port's a public body, generally you can't donate to, even to another public body except under rare circumstances. However, you could enter into a cooperative endeavor in which the port believes that by granting this right-of-way without charge, the port will benefit by granting it. And so as long as there is a mutual benefit, then it's not truly a donation. But they can't, see, you have to, You just have to phrase it correctly. You have to phrase it as a cooperative endeavor that recognizes mutual benefits both to the parish and to, the parish is receiving it, and to the port. In lieu of money, they're going to get a benefit from granting this servitude.
Yeah, there's nothing that prevents that except we've got to have a CEA done. But the council can go forward at this point, or the port can, and agree to grant the servitude and then come back at some later point in time if the port agrees and make the donation.
We, Mr. Kognovich, we would be happy to introduce at the next meeting a CEA whereby the 2180 is not paid in lieu because the port is getting drainage,
Benefit.
improved drainage for the property or something. But we really, we would ask that this particular resolution get passed because the Corps is really looking for it, and I've been hearing from Mr. Cooley pretty regularly.
And I've been hearing from Kevin Wagner from the Corps pretty regularly, and Kirk Lapine is also. This is the only thing that's holding up them being able to go forward with putting this particular project out for public bid. So they're hoping that this is done today. If it's done today, we'll be asking Kirk Lapine to issue a right of entry as soon as possible, perhaps tomorrow or next Monday or Tuesday.
I'm willing to do it.
Okay.
Might I suggest if you needed to pass something today, you could amend the existing ordinance to, rather than authorizing him to enter into an agreement to purchase, enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement to provide it at no monetary cost in exchange for the drainage benefits that will inure to the port. That way you've taken the step of authorizing the port to do it, then it's just a matter of drafting the document and having the respective parties sign it.
I'm good.
Commissioner Russo?
Yes, thank you for being here today, Mr. Cooley. This property is owned actually in fee by Plaquemines Parish government as part of what?
No. This particular sliver, this servitude that we want to acquire now,
Let me back up then.
Yep.
The original introduction was for $58,000, and it had some map on it. Now we're taking the $58,000 out, and we're having no map. So that's what prompts the questions. Why did we go from $58,000 and no map to start with?
I will try to explain it with Ken's assistant. Ken drafted the ordinance. Initially, there was some confusion about what was happening. The only thing that's happening in this particular case is, and we've offered to purchase from the port for $21.80 the drainage canal servitude. Initially, we've already appropriated other slivers of property from the port for this same project. They were appropriated because they were in the footprint of the levee. So there was no need to come back to you to ask for authority, since we've already.
Before you go any further, you asked for that authority back in 2017 or whatever it was, to go out and buy everything. And so, correct?
Sometime, I don't have the ordinance, but,
But you want me to read it to you?
yeah, that's fine. I don't have the ordinance.
All right, so the point is this, that we've already bought property from the port, is that correct, for the levy portion? Or,
Appropriated property, that's correct.
and how much have we paid the port?
The amount is,
Nothing's been paid.
we haven't paid it yet. We've got a check. It's probably around,
All right, let me rephrase the question. How much will we pay the port?
how much will we be paying? We're waiting at this stage. There are what's happened, we appropriated temporary use of roadways for this project. That was appropriated. And we're ready to cut a payment and grant and give the port its money that it's due.
How much?
It's about $58,000.
So that's the original figure that we had on the agenda today.
That's correct, because initially, the ordinance was improperly drafted. It wasn't supposed to include the properties that were already appropriated. Because this is one of those cases where we had to acquire levee footprint and drainage canal rights
Separately?
separately. We appropriated the levee footprint, and we needed to acquire the drainage
Now-
servitude, and we couldn't take it by appropriation, so we offered, and extending the offer now for 2180 to purchase that right. So that's what this is all about.
And so, this is the same property that we talked about 3 years ago, that where we had asked the port to donate this property, and we had some comment back from VG that did not want us to move on that. Is that similar?
I'm not certain. I don't know.
But, you know, what amazes me is this. All of a sudden, we're at the last minute in a rush. We talked about this 3 years ago.
There was
Correct.
a discussion, yeah.
2017, we passed an ordinance to do this.
Yes. and-
Correct?
And the question was, at that point in time, was the port going to donate that land?
That's correct. And what did the port decide to do?
It hasn't, we appropriated it, and at this stage, we, Plaquemines Parish government, have an obligation to pay the port, since they're a separate government entity in Plaquemines Parish. So that's, we've got a check that's ready to come to you. You can then say, or we can get into another CEO.
No, let me cut to the chase here.
Fine.
Remember I amended the ordinance back in 2017 asking the words to be donation, that it reads as this: temporary work area easements in certain portions of lands in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana by donation, purchase, appropriation, and/or expropriation to construct New Orleans to Venice, 9-February 681, Wood Park to Point Celeste. Right?
Right.
Now, have you ever written a letter to anybody asking for a donation of the property in writing?
On this one?
Yes, no, and any of them?
Yes, we have.
So could you provide that letter of rejection to us, so we'll see who accepted the letter and rejected the offer, or to donate
There is no rejection letter on this.
on this, on any? You know, LV, my problem is that we went through this, we subdivided all of this property, they put the corridor in there for the levee and for the drainage, and at the time, my argument was, why are we passing this subdivision without reserving the rights for drainage? Like any other subdivision in the parish, when we accept it, it's at no cost to the parish, and the drainage servitudes are donated in the subdivision. This is something that we're out there buying now. And it's not just the port, but it's the private owners as well. And, correct?
But we've done that. I mean, we've gone to all the landowners where we needed this drainage canal, and we've asked, and it's been rejected.
You asked in verbal, no writing.
I've had them tell you that. I mean, we've had no's. I mean, I've had conversations with them. They said no.
Conversations don't get it with me, and you know that. And I've been arguing with you on this for years. This is 2017, and the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, when we should have held our feet to the fire and accepted the drainage servitudes with the subdivision, the port stood in the way and didn't want it. Now,
There's no subdivision.
there was a subdivision, LV, the whole property was subdivided I don't want to waste everybody's time, but if you come to the office one day, and very soon, we're going to have this discussion in the office, okay?
Fine.
And I'm going to express why I'm disappointed in this process and how we got here today.
That's right. Thank you.
All right, in the spirit of expediency, can we vote on this today and then just bake this 2180 or 2080 into the interagency fee?
He's got a different approach.
Hold on,
Mr. LaFrance, please, go ahead.
Did we obtain all the property for this project? All the rest of the property has been obtained.
You can't answer from there, but you got to come to the mic.
All the property's been acquired.
You got to come to the mic, LV.
You can hear me.
Listen, let me tell you something, Elvie. When I go home to my constituents, they complain that I can't hear what's going on at the meeting because people are not speaking into the mic.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I will speak into the mic. Yes, in answer to your question.
Yeah, okay. Can we have the appraisal on all these properties?
Yes,
And how much did we pay?
yes, we have them all, yes.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. That's the original issue from GCR.
All right, thank you.
Let Mr. Garrett right there. Do what he said, make an amendment.
All right, so as a body, we have to decide whether we'd like the money baked into the interagency fee, or we'd like to just move it over as this donation, and then the parish accept land that's going to be underneath the levy. It's up to y'all, whichever way you prefer.
Whatever's easiest.
All right.
It is problematic, as Mr. Chairman, it is problematic, as Danny noted, for just a straight-up donation of this, okay? It's
Certainly.
It's a legal problem, but however the council wants to handle it.
In the future, can we make sure any sort of land acquisitions from port to parish are probably worked out for $1 or something, where we're not having this kind of conversation? Is that possible?
Can you make an amendment?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, you could actually amend the current ordinance to, instead of authorizing direct executive director to execute the agreement as set forth in attached Exhibit A, to direct the executive director to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the parish to provide without monetary cost of servitude to the parish to facilitate the parish improving the drainage of the port property. The port declares that the value of the drainage improvements contemplated meets or exceeds the value of the servitude provided in favor of the parish. That takes care of the Article 7, Section 14 donation problem, and you've authorized him to enter into the agreement.
We'll take 5 to 7 to get that on paper. Thank you. Recess, y'all. Cub. Called to recess at 5:33 PM.
We could have moved on to something else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
Good, yeah, of course. All right. No, I would rather not defer it.
So you could bring it back.
Today.
All right, let's
Go to
do
the
it.
Next item.
Wait, who needs to be out of this meeting now?
Danny, I would say. But you're right, yes, I can. I would have rather just done the interagency fee, because that way it wouldn't be a lot of work on Sam Barr.
No, it doesn't matter.
With all the changes, we could have just did yes and moved.
Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
Come back out of recess.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that you come out of recess and let's move forward with the ordinance as it is.
5:34, we're back from recess. Yeah, I know. Want to call it to question? All right. Yeah, sure. All right, machine's open for voting. All right, the measure passes with Commissioner Roussel not voting.
No, I'm voting.
Oh, it has you here, no vote.
My machine ain't voting. Count me as a verbal yes.
All right, is it verbal yes? All right, since the attorneys are busy, we'll do one that's a little bit easier here. We'll move down to agenda item,
Right.
Shambrell, are you ready for the report? By all means.
All port commissioners have been provided a 2020 total budget report and a 2020 budget performance as of February 27, 2020. These reports include 2019 actual expenditures, 2020 budget, and 2020 actual expenditures as of February 27, 2020. I would like to highlight a couple of financial highlights. December 2019, the port had a 144% collection rate in port tariffs. In 2019 fourth quarter, the port seen only a 1% increase in accounts due in the tariff department. In January 2020, the port had an 88% collection rate in port tariffs. On January 29, 2020, the port went through a FEMA monitoring visit for port security grants issued in 2017, 2018, and 2019. I would like to report that the port had a result letter with no recommendations. The port met all grant regulations. That letter should be issued, the FEMA representative told me in about a couple of weeks, so I will forward that to all the commissioners, but she did let me know that there weren't going to be any recommendations listed in the letter. The port's Director of Finance hosted 2 meetings with port commissioners on February 19th and February 20th to discuss the financial questions and concerns that were discussed during the last financial report in January. That concludes my report. If you have any questions regarding the summary budget and the budget performance that I've provided to you today, you can reach me at the office or email regarding those details.
Thank you, Shambrell. The one meeting of the 2 that I attended was really informative. It was very helpful to see some of the inner workings there. Are there any questions from the panel?
Right here.
Commissioner Rousseau?
Yes, I also want to thank you for holding that meeting. And as a result of that meeting, there were some deliverables that we had requested, and I had brought them up before you had arrived. Are you providing us with an updated list of contracts that have been executed?
Yes, I have the to-do list. I just returned back from the holiday today, but I did place all of the 2019 travel expenses on the shared drive, so that was completed today. I completed my final review of the active contract list right before I left for the meeting, so I'll place that on the shared drive as well. And I think you may have had a couple of other requests, such as the list of appraisals. I'm still working on that one.
All right.
It's my last one.
Thank you. And one question on this report. We collected 144% collection rate. How,
Yes, so that means we collected in payments more than what we actually billed out for the month, more than what we invoiced.
so do we owe refunds, or how does
No.
that work?
No, it includes the current, so if we're billing, say, 400,000 a month, we collected 500 within that month. Now, that may have been from past billings, from previous months, but our collection, what we're pulling in on a monthly basis is outweighing what we're putting out. So that contributes to our low balance of accounts due to the port. We have a very good collection rate on our invoicing.
That's what our old people call lanyard.
Thank you.
All right, moving along the agenda.
6C, a resolution establishing a calendar policy for the administrative staff of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'd like to offer as read.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Kognovich. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? All right, machine is open.
Before we do that, I have a statement.
Certainly.
I thought that our meeting that we had on Monday, that was going to solve a lot of these problems. And that we were going to have a meeting on a Monday before our port board meeting to discuss not only the Port Board meeting, but also calendars. I think the way that you're asking for is going to be an administrative nuisance. And also, on the calendars, there is a tremendous amount of sensitive information that, if shared, is detrimental to the marketing ability of the port.
Sure, I understand what you're saying there, Sandy. What I'm asking for is a broad, a higher level idea of what the port executives are working on. It's not dialed down hour to hour, day to day. It's just simply to give the commissioners a rough idea of what our number one guys are out there doing, going to bat for the
And I
port.
think that is a smart, very smart thing. Again, I refer back to our conversation that we had on Monday. I was on a teleconference, but you were with Mr. Matthews and the vice chairman. That I started with the 18 goals that we shared with you at the beginning of the year. I said 95% of our activity is somewhere related to these 18 goals. I asked if you wanted to add or detract from that. Nothing. And then we agreed that of the 18 goals, that I would also provide the steps, however many it took, 5, 6, 20, to attain that goal, and we would review that on a bi-monthly basis, bi-weekly basis.
Sandy, I've repeatedly requested information about what's going on, what's being worked on, and I often do not get that. I often find out about meetings after the fact.
You're talking about one meeting. One meeting that I, in front of God and country, said it was my fault. So it's not repeated meetings, it was one meeting.
If the thing is, though,
If I
Sandy,
made a mistake, I own it.
you know, respectfully, Mr. Sanders, if those types of things were on a calendar, this was a meeting about water pressure and man camps. I mean, if those kind of things were on a calendar where the commissioners could see them, you know, I'm sure Mr. LaFrance maybe would have liked to be there. These things are happening in this district. You know, we're trying to balance the needs of a community and the growth of a port. And having these things laid out in a way that's somewhat transparent for the commissioners, I don't think we're asking for very much. You know, it's
I
just,
think you are. And that is not our leadership style. My leadership style is I give direction and vision. I don't even have Mr. Matthews' calendar. He doesn't have the calendars of the people on the staff. But y'all want the calendars of not only me and Mr. Matthews, but also our staff people. I mean, I think that's a little bit micromanagement.
I don't think that's the case. And if you read the legislation, it doesn't ask for that.
I mean, y'all are going to vote on it however you're going to vote on it anyway. But I'm just saying, I'm not a potted plant here, and I'm going to tell you how I feel.
Certainly. All right. Are there any questions from the board?
Richie,
Oh, go ahead.
yes,
Sorry.
thank you. Am I on? Sandy, as you know, several years ago, you were issuing a weekly report. And you detailed that weekly report. And I have a file that's thick on those weekly reports. And it let the board know what was going on.
And if I may, if that is what y'all want, and that is what we call the Monday morning quarterback meeting that we have with our staff, happily let y'all have that agenda. And that is how we keep track internally of everything that we're doing. So if Chambrel, Christie, or Donald Durr, who's on the executive staff, they've been detailed with these things. And again, most of those details are from the port goals. Then they have to give a progress report, and it's ongoing. So if that's what you want to keep up with port activity, I see no problem with that. I see no problem if y'all want to sit in on it.
Well, I appreciate that. However, you know, the reason that this request is coming forward is because I go to meetings and all of a sudden someone questions me about something that went down last week. I have no knowledge of it, no clue, and can't even hold an intelligent discussion about the issues. So And I know you're over there and you're squinching a little bit, but let me give you a prime.
I'm listening to you, and I
well, don't
understand
interrupt
your
me then,
position
okay?
as a commissioner. Someone comes up to you, that could be very embarrassing.
So let me explain to you a prime example. Your railroad meeting at the Regional Planning Commission, correct?
Correct?
I'm a member of the Regional Planning Commission and never knew about the meeting until someone one of my colleagues on the Regional Planning Commission asked me if I was going to be in attendance and was never invited. Invited myself. Correct?
I did not invite you.
That's correct. And so,
I called the meeting, and we had it at the RPC. And I called the meeting because I could not get any other entity to take ownership of it. And so I, as the port director, said, let's have a meeting, let's get everybody re-energized on this. It was my commitment to the mayor of Gretna, and she and I said, we both want the same thing. You want the rail out of Gretna for safety and economic development. I want it out of Gretna because I can't build a port as the present configuration of the rail. Now, when it got to the RPC, it took on a life of its own. And so, again, that's where you came, and that's where Richie came, and that's great. I wouldn't mind if the whole port came there, port board, but that wasn't that information was not being held back from you because of that.
well, see,
I'm going to need all the help I can get getting that rail done.
and we're trying to give you all the help we can. If we don't know what's going on, then we can't help you. Now, you paid Benoit $300 or $400 to set the meeting up to the Regional Planning Commission.
I did.
Exactly. So to say that you took that ball, you paid a consultant to go out there and do that. When a
I
simple
paid a
call,
consultant to gather the folks that we had talked about, and we agreed that bringing it at the RPC might give more oomph to it and gravitas to the meeting versus us just being in Belinda Constant, the mayor of Gretna's office, that we had been doing before. But that was a planned, strategic decision to do that, to give credence to the meeting and get those people that need to be involved to get involved. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but go ahead.
I'm kind of used to it with the staff interrupting me, but, I'm really, trying to make a point that the more transparency, the better off we are. You sit there and you say, with all this to come, well, nobody knows about it, they can't come. And we're not asking for confidential information. We're asking for what is going on in the port on a daily basis, not to micromanage. And I'm tired of hearing people say you're micromanaging. This is an oversight board. We give you a budget. We give you $100,000 to travel all year, and we don't know where it goes unless I go ask Shambra where was the money spent. We never know if you're flying out today or tomorrow, or we don't know what's going on. That ought to be a concern to you. Seeking votes here today for many things that we're sitting in the dark. With a little transparency, and that word is overused so much that I really hate to use it. But the facts are, we don't know what you're doing and what's going on at the port. Like this, Paul's contract's been on the agenda, but now he's not here today. Now, I'm not sure why he's not here today, and I hope it's a good reason. But the fact is, we telegraph our actions 2 weeks in advance. So I would expect that the port could at least be transparent and tell us what you're planning on doing and some of the issues that we're going to face.
I understand your concern.
And I'm going to bring up another issue in a few minutes.
Go ahead.
That highlights this. I'm not there on the agenda yet.
Okay. No, I appreciate what you're saying, and if you do look at our calendars, and if you were to look at our travel vouchers, I think you could correlate that to the 18 goals that we have set for the port to be accomplished in 2020. And that's what I told the chairman in our meeting on Monday. But the chairman said he wanted more granularity, so, and
I don't
agree.
know if I'm looking for more granularity. I just don't want to have to put a puzzle together every time I'm, just trying to figure out
again,
what's
but I
going
think
on.
as far as not putting together a puzzle, when I put down, bear with me. But a goal of, where are those goals? Well, when I put down the goal of getting the rail wraparound, that's one of our goals for 2020. Then, as we discussed and agreed, that I should put down all the different steps that go into getting that goal, and then I will be reporting to y'all about those steps on a regular basis. We decided twice a month, but if you want it more than that, I can give you status reports on where we are with each sub-goal that goes into the final goal.
Mr. Sanders, do you believe that it is prudent and a good idea for the commissioners to know what projects are going to be coming to Plaquemines Parish, or should we only know about those until they get to a certain point that's determined by you? At what point should the commissioners know which projects are going to be coming to Plaquemines Parish in a negotiation? Say Vulcan Materials is coming down, or say, we shouldn't use a company name, but say a rock yard is going to come here, or something like that. At what point do you let us know?
I can tell you what I'm working on. A lot of it is covered by non-disclosure agreements. What I found in the past is that leaks out. So when I'm about 95% sure they're coming, that's when I will bring it to you. Just like the telephone call I made to you this morning, I said, we need to meet because I think this has been percolating, and they're ready to meet. So I balance your need to know, and I'm not denying your need to know, but I'm balancing your need to know with keeping it under wraps so it doesn't get out. Once again, we have tried to do this, and I hear about it on the street the same day. Sadly, but I mean, things leak out. And I talked to you and the vice chairman, as I did with John Bartholomew and Dr. Gouy when they were the chairman and vice chairman. I said, I'm going to keep y'all as informed as I can, but you got to understand, you got to keep it close hold. I want you to know. And then you say, okay, where are we with this, Sandy? We're ready to go. Okay, let's bring the board in. But, I mean, I got to keep it as tight a circle as I possibly can. And it's not to block it from you. It's to get the deal done. And I know I'm not going to be in competition with another port or someone trying to submarine me. And I do get that often.
Understood, but you can see the importance of
understand
clear
the
communication with
delicacy
this.
of the balance and your need to know.
We're trying to balance the needs and desires of the residents here with building out a world-class port, and nuance and clear communication are very key in that. And I think one of the foundations of that is sharing what we're doing with each other.
And we're in violent agreement that y'all need to know. And perhaps you and the vice chairman and I and Mr. Matthews can get together and we'll come up with triggers that we all agree when these triggers to let the board know. But even letting the board know without being done is still under a non-disclosure agreement. And I have to balance your need to know with it getting out and not bringing the deal together. I hope you appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate what you and Mr. Roussel have verbalized and what everybody on the board probably thinks too. You have a need to know. Amen.
Got it. Thank you. Trudy? Ms. Newberry?
Yes. We did have that meeting Monday, and I was on the same page. But this is, Sandy, in order for us to have communication with the board and the port, policies need to be set in place. And unfortunately, not all policies y'all agree to. Now, I guess I'm asking is, I understand where you're coming from with confidentiality, but it's not, this is just a resolution, and it's just, to me, unless I'm taking it the wrong way, is a simple calendar, maybe on a need-to-know basis. I mean, or have you, Ken, looked at this and maybe try to put an amendment to it that satisfies the board and yourself?
Let's work towards that. Something that you can live with, course, I say I can live with, but I'm a servant to the board, okay? You guys say it and I got to do it. I'm just saying, let's come up with a happy medium on what it is that you need to know, and I'm going to try to give it to you. And again, balance that with the sensitivities of that on the calendar. And think about this. It's on the calendar, it's on electrons. How many people see it? It's just not you 9 people.
Okay.
And a click of a button, and that's all over the parish. But, I mean, I know y'all wouldn't do that, but things leak out, okay? I'm trying my best to build this, but I can't keep sword fighting with things that shouldn't have happened.
Well, then maybe we need to get together and sit down and try to find out what works for the board and for you.
I can live with that. If the chairman can live with that, we'll come up with an agreement, and then we'll, if you have to pass an ordinance or whatever it is, I'm good. I just want there to be a give and take on what I'm trying to do. And again, I understand your need to know. I got it. I've had many boards that I have to answer to. I've had bosses in the Army I had to answer to. But I know your need to know. I know the sensitivity of that. I'm just simply asking, let's get together so y'all have an appreciation for the sensitivity I'm trying to balance and keep on a non-disclosure basis.
Okay, well, I'll ask the chair to consider that, and it'll be up to him. Thank you. I'll yield.
Commissioner Arborough?
Yes. While I appreciate the intent and definitely agree that transparency is much needed and a good thing, especially in this process, I truly believe we're going about this the wrong way. And if you look at the language in this, I only have to agree with Sandy that, I mean, it's could be a detriment to us. Minute-to-minute reporting, we really got to look at this in another way. But with that being said, I'd also like to say, Richie, practice what you preach. Are you willing to put your calendar out there? You're a port chair, you're having these meetings, you're sending emails, you're discussing things as our port chair. There's behind-the-door meetings, conversations happen all the time that I don't know about, and maybe other council members aren't aware of. So we're going to ask Sandy to do this. Would you do the same?
Sandy, when I sent you the original request, did I attach my calendar to that request?
I don't believe you did, sir.
Julia, did we do that? Please, by all means, share my calendar with the executive staff of the board. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Again, closed-door meetings, emails happening, conversations had that doesn't reflect the entire board. Also a concern.
I'm not really sure what you're trying to insinuate, Mr. Arborough.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, I'd appreciate it if you and the Vice Chairman and I, Mr. Matthews, get together and iron out what would be a balance that we could both live with, protecting the sensitivity of the information and your need to know.
Got it. When meetings are dropped day of, after I'm on my way to the city to meet, when I'm repeatedly thwarted when I ask for these things, this is what led to this. Those types
I know it led to
those
it.
types of things. And I felt like I got to the point.
About one meeting that I told you I could not attend because I had to attend something with my spouse. And you got pretty tiffy about it. And I could not get around it. If it's a choice between a meeting that I have to do with my chairman or something that just popped up with my wife, I love you, Richie, but I'm going to go with my wife, Fran.
Fully understand, when we are compensating you fairly to do this task, and sometimes the job comes number one, and anyway, we're moving on.
Mr. Chairman, I can guarantee you, I have put this job number one many, many, many times above my family.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
So,
As far as moving today, one example of the executive's report today, I've let this go on for a while, expecting to be briefed by the executive's report. Today, the executive report consisted of one item that we read about on the email and in the newspapers about Venture Global. So that's not being very transparent to me about what's going on in the port, because I have no idea what's going on for the last month or so. But having said what you've said and what I've said, I've asked the chairman if he will defer it today to get a consensus to come back here, but to share a calendar is not a major event. I want to leave you with that thought.
Okay. In May, I respond to that?
You always do.
Touche. I've been here a little over 6 years. When I first got here, my executive director's report got to be ad nauseum that I was getting people coming in going like, look, I don't need to know when you're going to the bathroom. I don't need to know this. Just hit the wave tops. So I try to hit the wave tops, but I do not report things in a public meeting when I am discussing sensitive items. During the last reporting period, I think I probably had 4 major meetings that would be worth discussing behind closed doors. But we're being filmed, and I know that there's other ports that watch our film.
Right. Well, let me just respond by saying that
Yes, sir.
I'm not asking you when you go to the bathroom.
I got you.
You know what I mean? So when you use
using
those
an
phrases,
analogy.
you belittle the conversation. And it's not appropriate to be belittling a serious conversation by how many times you go to the bathroom. And that brings to mind a later item on the agenda that they use the same terminology in the toll bridge meeting at the Bell Chase Auditorium. When it went to the committee, he tells the committee that we had a great meeting. Only 3 people got up and went to the restroom. Now, what does that insinuate? So my point is, I don't care when you go to the bathroom, but I do want your schedule or some kind of form to be able to understand, and I'm going to ask the chairman again if he'll defer it so we can get together and resolve this issue. But the things that have gone on in the past are not acceptable any longer. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
All right, moving down the agenda. Is there any more comments from the board, from the audience? None? Hearing none? All right, moving along. We'll defer this.
6D, an ordinance to amend the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District 2020 manpower structure and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'd like to offer. Looking for a second? All right. And Shambrell, could you maybe speak a couple moments about this?
Yes, sir. In the 2020 budget hearings in November, the port was requested and the board approved to add the comptroller back to the manpower for the port due to the Civil Service Board not approving a reallocation, but yet wanting to advertise for the Director of Finance position. So this ordinance will remove that because the Director of Finance position has been filled. So the comptroller position is being unfunded and removed from the port's manpower structure. The port also had a clerk 3 position on the manpower table, which was approved at the budget hearings. This ordinance will remove a clerk 3 position and will be adding a senior accountant 2 position to the manpower. And basically, we have advertised for the clerk 3 position for about a year. I think for about a year, we did about 4 advertisements, and we were not successful in filling that position. As I mentioned in the financial report, we recently went through a FEMA monitoring visit. And a lot of things came up. The port currently has been awarded about 7 grants, 7 port security grants. So I'm looking for a senior accountant that can help the finance department, better manage those port security grants that will be awarded to us, in addition to taking on the duties I had originally set for the Clerk 3, which would be working more so on the rescue boat department side, administratively and accounting wise.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the panel? All right, any questions from folks in the audience? All right, hearing none, I'd like to call a question. Machine's open. The measure passes. Moving down the agenda, please.
F, a resolution of the Plaquemines Parish Council acting as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, expressing disagreement with state project number H004791, also known as the Belle Chase Bridge and Tunnel Replacement Public-Private Partnership Project, Plaquemines Parish, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer next.
Oh, actually, this is under my name. I'd like to offer and ask for a second.
May,
Seconded by Councilmember Koknovich. Oh,
going to have discussion on that?
Oh, we are.
Okay.
I bring this before the Port Harbor Terminal District today because after our council has reviewed the agreements that are in place, and this deals with the Belle Chase Bridge, the toll project. As you know, the toll project was signed, and the situation that exists now is that after the fact, we learned details that were very disturbing. On May the 29th at the Belle Chase Auditorium, the Department of Transportation and Development held a public meeting to discuss the project. Now, the project had been in the works for probably a year before that. And a lot of information was not coming forward and had not come forward. And so at the auditorium that night, there was comments made. The toll was mentioned. However, the real details of the agreement were not known until after we received it, to well after a committee meeting was held. And there was a detail in there, for instance, the State Department of Transportation will now be a profit sharer of the tolls. Up to 50% of the tolls will go to the DOTD. Now, that is a serious situation that I believe circumvents the intent of taxing people without their vote. It puts the DOTD in a position to be able to raise money without a vote of the people, strictly by hiring a company named Plenary to share those profits once those benchmarks are met. The very next morning after the 29th, there was a breakfast held at the governor's mansion, and I believe, Mr. Lapine, you might have been there, and Plenary was there, the contractor, which I'm not sure what was discussed there, but if you'd like to elaborate, I'd like to hear that.
There was a meeting to meet preliminary with myself, Councilmember Black, and Representative Leopold. Nothing was discussed. It was the introduction of preliminary.
It was just a breakfast. Okay, well, I'll move on. 4 hours later, there was a Joint Transportation Committee hearing held in Baton Rouge in the Senate committee. And, this is what took place, which led to a lot of the animosity in here today. And I'd like to see if you would play that clip. And what I did was I just took a very small part of the clip because there was 3 items on the agenda for that meeting. But this
Okay, members, one more agenda item. We're going to move to public hearing and comments on the public-private partnership procurement for Belle Chase Bridge and tunnel replacement in Plaquemines Parish. Representative Leopold, if you want to come to the table, I know you've been intimately involved in this along with the Secretary. I know Senator Hewitt, Senator Carter have as well. Mr. Secretary, you may want to give a brief overview of what took place last night.
Certainly.
In Belle Chase, without all the gory details?
Without all the gory details, and recognizing that we have about 16 minutes before you all convene or the Senate President calls you, we had a public meeting that Senator Carter and Representative Leopold asked us to do, and the leadership of the House and the Senate Transportation Committees were there. And it was an opportunity to do what we promised the community that we would do, which was come back to them with the details of what the proposal looks like. The most pressing question is, what is the rate? What is the bridge going to look like? Some of those things, and we provided all of those details. We have handouts of the entire presentation being passed out, and a part of that presentation will also provide the recommendation or the rating that we provided as a department. In full transparency, we had one proposal out of the three that we worked with for about 9 months. They made the decision to not submit if they chose not to submit. It is not uncommon for us to let projects where there's one proposal, whether it's construction or engineering, but we still measure that project with the same rigor and review that we would had we had 10 projects. And so it wasn't necessary to compete against another project to get a rating. The overall technical proposal for this project received what's considered an A. That is not on the same scale. You have excellent at the top, good, acceptable, and unacceptable. You have the opportunity for an A plus or an A minus or those things. It is not uncommon in the P3 world to get exceptional or excellent, because that's a much steeper hill to overcome, even in design build and P3. So I don't want you to be deceived by not getting that. It doesn't mean it's not a good proposal or a good project. It's just the way we rated it. And then the next slide that you see is how we compared the model of having the lowest possible toll for the shortest amount of time. We looked at the technical score and the financial score. The technical proposal received an A+. The financial proposal received an A. And so the purpose of last night's meeting was to hear the public's comments about the proposal and what it's proposing to do, and to give us feedback and information to go back and have conversations with the proposer. Folks asked, for example, what about folks who drive 5 times? Well, we're going to have a strategic conversation with the developer. What happens if someone drives 5 times? Is there a way for us to let them go free after their second term for the full 24 hours? Those are conversations that we're going to have and understand whether or not that can work or not. And because it's a partnership, we can't dictate those things because those things cost. But we'll have a very healthy conversation with them. And the purpose of last night's meeting, it was over 250 people. It lasted about 3.5 hours. And we had about an hour and 15 minutes of thoughtful, substantive presentations that you see before you. And folks were very attentive, and someone commented that only 3 people went to the restroom in that whole time. So that's a good thing. And so they were very engaged. And so today's purpose was to give you all the opportunity to give us some comments and feedback that you think ought to be put in there. And we do have with us Mr. Dale Bonner, who is the president of the company, Plenary North America, and they're prepared to give a very abbreviated version of their presentation. And I've asked them after the representative speaks to provide a slide or 1 or 2 slides to talk about who are the team members, because they're folks who've built major bridges here, i.e. Huey P. Long, Wrigley's, I believe the Causeway, or the Mississippi River Bridge. So these are folks who have world-class talent doing this. And then I also asked them to highlight the toll rate, because that is the other real important question that we have. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield to you and the representative and senator to comment.
Okay, I do have one card, Paul Matthews with the Plaquemine Port, and you would like to speak?
I would like to just wait very quickly.
Okay, why don't you come on up?
Yes, for the record, Paul Matthews, Deputy Port Director, Plaquemines Port. We just want to say on behalf of the port, we support enhanced infrastructure in Plaquemines Parish. As you may or may not know, there's more than $20 billion of announced private investment at Plaquemines Port for development over the next 10 years, and it's growing. And so we recognize this enhanced infrastructure development Plaquemines would be significant for what we're doing down there at mile marker 50. So we just wanted to say that for the record. There's a lot of investment going on down in Plaquemines Port, and this would be key to make sure that we don't have the congestion that many people are concerned about. So we're fully supportive of an enhancement of infrastructure in Plaquemines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Just, I will mention to the committee that last night, at the hearing, the public input, I did mention there are many, as you go around, we hear it at our road shows, there's many naysayers that, don't want to pay a toll. And Representative White said it earlier, nobody wants to pay a toll. But I think as we've been traveling the state, we've come to the conclusion that if you want projects, you may have to enter into these P3s that are going to require tolls. So just again, for the committee, Mr. Secretary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have about $90+ million that is not going to be toll bonded. It's going to be upfront money to make this project go. The total project is in the 150 range-ish.
I think it's 160 plus. I think it's 162.
Yeah, 162. So I think the first 92 million is coming from, different sources, all from MPO local dollars, from federal dollars, from the infra grant, the Garvey. So a lot of money's being put into this. And in all of our communities, there are going to be people who are going to say, we don't want a new bridge. We'd rather keep the old tunnel. And I mentioned last night, and I think Representative Leopold and I talked along with Senator Carter on the way home, there are many places in this state that are begging. As we had in Senate committee earlier, the Lake Charles Bridge, they're begging, literally directing the department to get a toll bridge over there. So thank you for your hard work, Representative Leopold and Senator Hewitt and Senator Carter, who is not here. But you may want to just at least mention that this is not all toll bonded.
It is not.
Very small
It's
part.
actually, and we were worried that we were putting too much public money to attract folks. We had 25 applicants, 6 globally competitive firms. We're putting up $92 million with a requirement that you have to use that money, so it's not optional for them. But not only are you getting a $160 million project, which includes a new 4-lane fixed structure with pedestrian and bicycle accommodations that does not move, it's fixed. You're going to remove an old movable bridge, as well as a tunnel is going to be rendered useless or non-passable. And you have additional landscaping and elements a part of this. You also have an opportunity to maintain this structure for 30 years as a part of this agreement. And so not only are they building the front end cost of doing this, they're building in the cost to maintain and operate this bridge, where you will have a dedicated staff to mow and maintain and operate the bridge that you do not have on other structures. And so you can look at those other structures in the state and say, we need to spend more time. We're not proud of it, but you can go and see foliage on some of our bridges. That's not the way it's supposed to be, but that's the level we are because of the 12,000 bridges. This bridge will have dedicated staff to do that. You'll be able to be given a transponder, and I apologize to plenary if I'm stepping on your toes and talking about it, but given the time, I think it's important to say they'll be given a transponder. You can't give away one at LA1. We have to sell it. You have a reduced rate if you live in Plaquemines. You have interoperability that you have. There is no storefront. It comes directly to your house with community outreach that you can go online and populate it and use it like you would in other states. And you can go 55, 65, 75 miles per hour. If it were posted that, you're going to have to legally go the speed limit. But you can go that fast. There are no toll booths. There are no people to collect cash. And it is a toll of a small rate, and we'll show you that. And it's a toll in both directions because our model was the lowest rate possible for the shortest amount of time. And recognize that these rates are locked in for the 30 years with the increases that we've identified on the front end. They take risk for traffic if folks do not show up. And I remind you of LA1, where we are subsidizing a toll project to the tune of about $5 million from the department and $2.5 million from the state because of the risks associated with traffic models not delivering what was estimated. That is built into this model, and we're protected from the state's perspective. And so it's a pretty impressive operation. It's received national attention, and I've done international interviews because of the model that we've used. And we're very pleased with where we are today. And as we shared with the representative all through this process, If it was something unacceptable, we would not proceed and propose it. We think we have a very acceptable proposal that we are inclined to negotiate and have more discussions to refine it to its maximum potential and deliver this project. And it could start as early as 2019, late fall. And I think the number would be open to traffic, I believe, in 2023, with the rest of the structures decommissioned by 2024, and provide 4 lanes of traffic for 95% of the construction, except when you have to tie the new lanes to the old lanes, you'll have lane restrictions.
And then just comment from last night, I think that you made, since Representative Gisclair is here, the LA1 tolling may be part of this as well.
Correct. We've put in this proposal an opportunity to reduce the size of government. We staff about 22 people at that operation. The back office component of what the tolling system would be could be consolidated with this, and this company's expressed interest in doing that after we resolve the Bell Chase elements. It could reduce staff, it could reduce our cost to operate, and it wouldn't be duplicative. And the idea that the state would have to come in and provide some of these capital costs for that bridge is an additional cost that we do not have built into our model of how we fund that bridge right now because of the traffic. So it doesn't change the rates for that bridge. It doesn't change the bond payments on that bridge. It just allows us to reduce some of the expenditures out of that $5 to $8 million that we're spending annually to subsidize it. If we can reduce that to $2 million, that's additional money that we can put back into the TTF for projects around the state and or including the Bell Chase Bridge.
Okay. Chairman Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the sake of time, I just some personal observations and comments. Dr. Wilson, I think you remember me.
I do, sir.
Okay, thank you. I was part of that meeting last night, and I know the department gets a lot of criticism a lot of time because we're faced with an enormous backlog, and we want some instant results. I am just amazed at your ability to think out of the box and be creative and go after some of the federal dollars that has been sitting in the queue, and maybe we had not gotten our fair share. I saw your mother last night in the audience.
Oh, Lord.
And I saw the pride. I saw the pride in her face as you handled some pretty tough questions with all the professionalism and intelligence that anyone could ever expect. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to be your state rep, and I'm proud to call you friend.
Thank you.
And I think the department is in better shape in that paradigm shift that you and I always talk about. How we change.
Okay. The point of this replay is twofold. One of them is to, first of all, point out that, the port staff goes to Baton Rouge, takes a position on a project without informing the government or the board, as the port board, of what position they're taking on a toll project that this board has voted against. Now, today I'm asking the port board to take the position as the port to vote against it and express our concerns with the project, because I don't believe that the comments that were made to that committee reflected the sentiment of the people of Plaquemines Parish. This was not the case. There's nobody that I know of that reflected at that committee meeting or knew about that committee meeting the real wishes of the people of the parish, especially when you find out that $700 to $800 million will be extracted out of this community and used for Fouchon's Bridge or any other bridge in the state under the profit-sharing scheme. Now, our assistant director goes and testifies, and I'm sure you're going to have an excuse for him, and I'm willing to listen to it, but it's very clear that he took a position that I think if he had a calendar, we would have known it had been there. Because none of us knew that that committee meeting was going on the next day. He knew somehow, and our lobbyist walked in with him, handed him a green card so he could testify for it. And I talked to our lobbyist about that a couple of days ago. And that is this organization that I see where our right hand don't know what our left hand is doing. That prompted the calendar request and the request for transparency. And this should never happen. I'm willing to listen to your comments to defend it.
Okay. Let me repeat what Mr. Matthews said.
I knew we were going there.
Would you like to hear it?
I know, go right ahead.
Okay. Fully support the infrastructure project. He did not say, I support the tolls. And you can come in my office and look at the board, and you can see in writing many points that support I'm going to live and die by the onward movement of cargo. So I fully support this project. I'm not supporting how it's paid for, but I have to have the Toland Bridge fixed. In our conversation that we had on Monday with the chairman and vice chairman, we let that be known. And the compromise was, yeah, I'll write a letter saying I don't support the tolls, but I support the infrastructure project. Also, I think it's been signed off by DOTD and the governor has approved it, but we're wanting to write a letter when, and I admire your resolution, Mr. Roussel, when you reached out to the Attorney General for their opinion. You had 9, 10, 11 good questions. We haven't even got that back before now we're getting ready to, you want me to go up or write a letter?
I don't want you to do anything.
Oh, I was directed to.
Well,
I was directed to write a letter and say, I don't support this. And that letter is going to go to Secretary Wilson. It's going to go to the Senate and House Transportation go-to guys. It's going to go to all the state reps and the senators. And I'm like, guys, I need these people when I go for, excuse me, for projects. I need DOTD, and I'm like signing my own death certificate. I don't mind telling them I'm not for the tolls, but I need the infrastructure project.
okay. Are you finished?
I am, yes, sir.
Thank you. And, you know, I visualized those comments ever since Paul pulled the meeting together and added it to the agenda that you had with the chairman and the vice chairman. For anybody to sit here and watch that video and believe that he made a distinction between a toll project and the toll project that was being discussed are dreaming. If you listen to what he said and look at your notes, since you came prepared, he said,
I wrote it when I watched the video.
whatever.
I didn't
Don't
know this
interrupt me
video was
again,
gonna be
please.
here.
Let me just finish, and
Yes,
we can
sir.
wrap this up. He said he fully supported that project. Now, he sat in that Transportation Committee hearing when the first project was talked about was a $220 million project in St. Tammany Parish, where the state representative got up and said, we thank you for bringing this project to us, and no tolls, no tolls. My people don't want tolls. So I encourage anybody to go back and watch the full meeting of May the 30th at 12 o'clock of the Joint Transportation Committee and get the full flavor of the meeting. I just took a little excerpt out of it that dealt with us. Now, I don't see how you can justify trying to split that baby, knowing the fact that they're going to extract over $700 million out of the community and profit share it with the DOTD. And the fallacy of your argument about you need it, we all need it, but it adds no capacity to the highway system whatsoever. You got 2 in and 2 out. You should be promoting the Peters Road project as the #1 project. That's where we gain capacity, and we remove 35% of the traffic off of Bell Chase Highway and put it in the back on Peters Road. So I don't want to discuss this any further, but the point is, we cannot have testimony before a Senate committee contrary to the will of this board. Now, I don't know what this board's going to do, but I put this resolution up here for the board to make a statement, not for you. And if you were asked to do it, it wasn't by me, because I don't think you have the authority to take up issue and go on record like that on your own, because that's why we're here now.
I agree.
So my resolution, I'm hoping, is passed today, and that's the statement of this board. The research done by the attorney says that the toll project has to have the written consent of this board. Before I introduced this resolution, I talked to Dr. Gouy. I said, Dr. Gouy, since you plugged into the port, do you know if they've taken a position on this? And I'm sure he must have called you or Paul. And y'all told him no. And now I find out that you did. Not as the port, though, and I'm hoping that this resolution counters that testimony. Because the Attorney General will get this this request, and this resolution attached to it. And we'll see if it puts any teeth in that opinion that he's going to write. And that's the purpose of it, not anything else. That's all I have. Thank you.
You said somebody told you to write a letter? Who?
If I recall correctly, after we got the initial agenda, it had verbiage that wanted us to send a letter to a number of folks saying that we do not agree with this project. And I can dig it up and send it to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, in response to everything, I understand the position of the port, and the infrastructure that is needed to build this port, and I don't think we're all sitting here arguing against that. Well, we are sitting here arguing against the tolls. To put a toll over a canal that was actually a man-made canal is just unbelievably to understand how we can pay a toll to go over a canal. It's not like we go into the city, and that statement has been made several times. But it does say, in this resolution on line 44, the written agreement of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District is required by LRS 482084.15, and I think that what Mr. Roussel said, that is the position of the board. Is that correct, Mr. Roussel?
Yes. The purpose of this resolution is to put some teeth in our request of the Attorney General to find out if this is even a legal agreement that was signed. And that's what we want them to answer. And they will opine on that, and they may say it's a legal document, and they may say it's not a legal document. But we do know that steps weren't made with RS 48:2084.15 unless they take the testimony of the Assistant Port Director, which I don't think qualifies as port endorsement. And that's why I'm here today and wouldn't be here today if he hadn't gone to testify for it.
So I don't know if this puts Mr. Sanders in a position. This is just a position of the board. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would hope that Mr. Sanders takes the same position as the board. If not, we're in conflict, and then what good are we here? We're not working together. And we're definitely not working together with Mr. Matthews' testimony.
I'm looking at the resolution number 20.
It hadn't been adopted yet, so it doesn't have
Okay,
the
but I'm just saying, this was sent to me, and this is what I'm being instructed to do, and this is why the chairman and the vice chairman and I and Mr. Matthews, we talked about this. And I said, y'all put me in a very tenuous position by sending this letter out. I said, now, I'll gladly send a letter out saying that we don't support the tolls, but we do support the infrastructure project.
What line are you saying that the letter of you is required?
This is on line 64. Be it further resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority for the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District that Executive Director Sanders is authorized and directed to send a certified copy of this resolution to the following: Parish President Kirk Lapine, Sean Wilson, Secretary of Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, Attorney General Jeff Landry, each member of the Louisiana Legislative Delegation of Plaquemines Parish, Representative Matt Cormier, Representative Raymond Garofalo, Sharon Hewitt, Troy Carter, Patrick Connick, the House Committee on Transportation, Highways, and Public Works, and the Senate Committee on Transportation, Highways, and Public Works.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Sanders.
Yes,
This does not say you to send a letter. It says to send this resolution as the agreement of the body, which will comply with the law for us to go on record as being opposed to it. Now, if you don't want to send it, you want us to take your name out for some unknown reason, we'll have the secretary send it. Okay? So, this is simply complying with the policy that's adopted here if this is passed. Now, it may not pass. You don't
I
have to
agree.
do
I'm
it.
simply saying that these are the folks that I'm going to be going to in the future, hat in hand, for infrastructure projects, possible funding. I think that I'm going to get the look like.
Sometimes we got to stand up, Sanders, and represent our constituents. Our constituents are going to be standing up for 30 years paying this toll. So I got
I'm
to
not
take
talking about the toll. I'm talking about the project itself, not how it's funded. I'm talking about infrastructure projects.
Look, when you go see them and they slap your hand, tell them, I was for the bridge, it just wasn't for the toll. Okay? If that makes you
got
feel better.
Yes, sir.
As mentioned earlier, when we're elected council members here, we're simultaneously given the hats of being port commissioners of the 12th largest port in the country. And I think that if the port executives were pushing for something that the people here actually wanted, which was the Peters Road bypass, we could have achieved the port's goals and the goals of the people. We simply had no knowledge that y'all were going there. I scoured my calendar invites, emails, etc., and I guess this is one of those things that we just didn't need to know about. And that's why I'm asking for the calendar.
This was not our meeting. You got your representative, Leopold, was there. I don't know why y'all didn't know about the meeting. We got called at the last minute, said no one's coming. So, it's not that we snuck off and went and told them something. We're for infrastructure projects. And,
but not the right one.
That you have a constituency that you have to answer to. I fully understand that. I'm coming from where I sit, and yes, I need the Peters Road. I need the Bell Chase Bridge too. I need all of that.
And the people need the lobbying power, the funding, and the stroke that the port has. We need that working for us in Baton Rouge, not against us. I yield.
I agree. I agree.
I call a question.
I have a comment.
I withdraw my question.
Thank you. I'm opposed to tolls, as everyone knows that. But this body imposed a toll on the ferries. And over the years, the ferry was operating based on the road royalty fund, which was given to the parish over the years, every year, to maintain that. Then legislation was passed, giving us the authority to take the money and put it in operation, general fund. So there was a means of paying for the ferries. But because of our budgetary crisis, the wisdom at the council at that time, I don't know whatever council it was, saw fit to take the money and put it in operation. All I'm saying is that I'm against tolls, period. Whether it's on the bridge, on the ferries, wherever, because it's a form of taxation. And I'm not in favor of it. But at the same time, we ask that everybody be consistent with the philosophy on not supporting tolls. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's all. Call a question.
To call a question, the machine is open. And the measure passes.
Thank you all.
Moving down the agenda.
There is no new business. Number 8, approval of the February 13, 2020 meeting minutes.
So offered.
Second.
Offered by Commissioner LaFrance, seconded by Commissioner Kognovich. Machine is open.
Motion adjourned.
All right.
Offer. Second.
Offered by Commissioner Bartholomew, seconded by Councilmember Koknovich. Machine's open.
Yeah, no, man.
All right. And the motion passes. All right. And I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 6:41 PM.